It's always the quiet neighborhoods that hide the biggest storms. You move in, plant your flowers, sip coffee on the porch while the grandkids laugh in the yard, and for a while, you believe you finally found peace, but in places like Willowbrook, peace is always temporary. Because there's always someone with a clipboard, a title, or a bloated sense of authority, ready to shatter it in the name of community standards. That very thought crossed my mind one Saturday morning. I was sitting on the porch, cradling my mug, watching the kids kick a ball down the cul-de-sac. The sun was soft, the breeze smelled like fresh-cut grass. For a split second, it felt like the old days, back when kids ran through sprinklers and stayed out till the streetlights blinked on, not when neighbors called the police on them. But Willowbrook doesn't live in the old days. Not with people like Patricia Whitmore patrolling the streets. The moment I saw her marching across the pavement, hair stiff, pantsuit spotless, flanked by two uniformed officers, I knew, my peaceful morning was about to get loud. She marched like she owned the subdivision, gesturing at the kids as if they were suspects in a federal sting. Her voice cut through the air, shrill, self-important, and laced with manufactured concern, claiming the children were unsupervised and a threat to public safety. The officers looked easy, but Patricia had that effect as one officer slowly made his way toward the kids. I figured it was time to intervene. I set my cup down, stood from the porch, and slipped on my sunglasses. My FBI badge caught the light in one hand. I spoke with calm authority, slicing through Patricia's performance. Is there a problem here, officers? Earlier that morning, my sister had called in a panic. Her sitter had bailed last minute, and she needed someone to watch her 3 kids, plus their cousins. I'm currently on medical leave from the bureau, a bum shoulder, nothing serious. So I had the time. Watching 5 kids, aged 7 to 12 for the day. No problem, I'd set up a safe play zone in the cul-de-sac. Snacks, water, sunscreen, everything. And I had a perfect view from the porch the entire time. But none of that mattered to Patricia Whitmore, the self-declared warden of Willowbrook. From behind her embroidered curtains, she had been watching, phone in hand, snapping photos like she was building a case for trial. 5 laughing kids and no adult in arm's reach. In her world, that was criminal negligence. So, of course, she went online. First came the HOA forum posts, frantic messages that read like police blotters. Unattended minors, reckless play, imminent liability. When no one responded with the panic she expected, she turned up the drama. Phone calls to other board members, each one more exaggerated than the last. By the 3rd call, she was claiming the kids were throwing rocks at passing cars. Martha Henderson, the HOA treasurer, suggested she simply walk over and take a look. But Patricia dismissed it, invoking her professional distance as HOA president. Then came the neighborhood watch alert. A mass text, a photo of the kids, a warning to keep other children indoors. And finally, with the full conviction of someone who's never been held accountable, Patricia called 911. The dispatcher probably sighed the moment they heard her voice. She reported child abandonment and described helpless minors left alone in a hazardous environment. Omitted, of course, was the fact that this environment was a quiet cul-de-sac. On a bright and breezy Saturday morning, when the 2 patrol cars rolled in, I knew what they expected, but what they found was something else entirely. Patricia intercepted them before they even reached the sidewalk, launching into her choreographed lecture on community integrity. But as Officer Chun approached the kids, who had paused their game to stare at the flashing lights, I stepped forward, badge out. Calm demeanor. Good afternoon, officers. Special Agent Marcus Thompson, FBI, currently on medical leave. Those are my nieces and nephews, all under my supervision. The look on Patricia's face? Priceless. She froze, mouth slightly agape, eyes twitching between me and the badge. Officer Chun visibly relaxed. Rodriguez, the senior officer, took my credentials and nodded. I explained everything, my position on the porch, my constant line of sight. The water breaks every 30 minutes. The kids were safe, supervised, and following every safety guideline. Patricia, meanwhile, kept trying to interrupt with some nonsense about HOA supervision ratios. Rodriguez wasn't having it. He raised a hand to silence her and asked a very pointed question. Why didn't she just approach the adult present before calling 911? Turns out this wasn't her first false alarm. The officers pulled up a record of previous calls, all from Patricia. Suspicious movers who were, in fact, just movers. Teenagers walking dogs. Lawn chairs left out too long. The usual paranoia. At that point, I pulled out my phone. Years in law enforcement have taught me. Document everything. I showed them security footage. My porch camera had captured the kids playing, and me watching the entire time. I even had a log, snack times, water breaks, sunscreen reapplication, first aid access, all of it. Officer Rodriguez made notes. Officer Chun ran Patricia's name, 7 false reports in 18 months, warnings for misusing emergency services. Neighbor complaints. Harassment allegations. Still, she clung to her frayed HOA handbook, flipping pages, muttering about bylaws from 2019 that no one else had ever seen. Rodriguez explained calmly but firmly that HOA rules don't override common sense. And they definitely don't justify abusing 911. When he told her this call would be officially logged as another false report, the color drained from her face. Neighbors had started to gather, whispering, watching. Some shook their heads. I remained calm, but inside? Oh, I savored every second of her unraveling. The officers left. But I didn't. I filed formal complaints with the HOA board and local authorities. And within 48 hours, the story spread like wildfire. By Monday, the HOA forum was packed with stories. Lemonade stands. Patricia reported to the health department. Basketball hoops cited as violations. Sidewalk chalk treated like gang graffiti. By Thursday, the emergency HOA meeting was standing room only. Patricia sat at the board table, back stiff, lips pursed. Gone was the smugness. One by one, neighbors spoke out. A single mother fined over her son's bicycle. An elderly couple harassed for their garden gnomes. A veteran targeted because his service dog barked during a storm, and then came the final blow. Jennifer Walsh, a retired prosecutor, laid out a full dossier, reports, timelines, witness statements. Patricia's petty crusades had cost the HOA over $15,000 in legal fees. 3 families had moved away. 2 more were considering lawsuits. The vote? Unanimous. Patricia was stripped of her presidency, cited for harassment, false reporting, and creating a hostile living environment. She stood up, red-faced, knocking over her chair as she screamed, "You'll regret this when property values tank without me." But her tantrum was cut short when the new board president announced, "I'd be leading a workshop, recognizing real threats versus personal bias, featuring the case of Patricia Whitmore." And for once, Willowbrook was finally quiet again. Patricia insisted she was right, swore up and down that her actions were backed by the amended HOA bylaws from 2019. But she couldn't seem to find the page. Officer Rodriguez stood patiently as she fumbled through the dog-eared handbook. But his voice cut through with firm clarity. "Ma'am, HOA rules don't override common sense, and they certainly don't justify abusing emergency services. Even if that rule existed, the correct action wasn't to call 911. It was to speak to the supervising adult present." That's when the shift happened. Rodriguez informed her that this incident would be formally logged as a false report. You could almost see the air deflate from her body. Her confidence drained away, leaving behind a pale, brittle woman frozen. Under the weight of her own consequences, the neighbors had gathered silently. Some whispered, some shook their heads in disapproval. And me? I stayed professional, calm, composed, but deep inside, I allowed myself one small victory. The satisfaction of seeing justice nudge a tyrant off her throne. The officers left, but I didn't stop there. I filed official complaints with the HOA board and local authorities. Years in law enforcement had taught me that documentation wasn't just helpful, it was everything. And word traveled fast. By Monday, the Willowbrook HOA forum was buzzing. Residents came forward one after another, sharing their own run-ins with Patricia. Lemonade stands she'd reported to the health department. Basketball hoops cited as code violations. Sidewalk chalk drawings accused of defacing property. By Thursday evening, The emergency HO meeting was packed, standing room only. Patricia sat stiffly at the board table, her usual smugness replaced by a cold, uneasy silence as neighbor spoke out. A single mother described how Patricia had threatened her with fines because her son's bicycle was visible from the street. An elderly couple shared how she'd harassed them over their decorative garden gnomes. Military veteran stood up and revealed Patricia had called the cops on his service dog for barking during a thunderstorm. Then came the final blow. Jennifer Walsh, a retired prosecutor who lived just 2 doors down, stood with a file thick enough to make a judge wince. She had prepared a meticulous timeline of Patricia's antics, dates, incident numbers, screenshots, and witness statements. It was damning. Patricia, Jennifer revealed, had cost the HOA over $15,000 in frivolous legal consultations, nuisance enforcement actions, and unnecessary complaints. 3 families had already moved out to escape her harassment. 2 more were consulting attorneys. When it came time to vote, there was no debate. Patricia Whitmore was unanimously removed as HOA president, cited for repeated misuse of HOA resources, false reporting, and creating a toxic, hostile community environment. The gavel struck, her face flushed a furious red. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair to the floor. "You'll regret this," she screeched. "When property values drop without my protection, don't come crawling back." But her tantrum was cut short by the new board president, who calmly announced that I would be leading a community workshop titled Recognizing Real Threats versus Personal Bias, a case study featuring Patricia Whitmore. The final insult? Patricia was fined $5,000 for multiple HO violations, and formally warned she'd be held personally liable for all legal fees if any residents chose to pursue harassment charges. Her parting shriek echoed through the community center like the last breath of a collapsing empire, and just like that, the petty reign of Patricia Whitmore was over, for the first time in what felt like forever. Willowbrook felt quiet, peaceful, like a neighborhood should be, if you've ever had to deal with an HOA. Tyrant like Patricia, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where common sense wins over control.